Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby. And tonight we have Dr. Betty Martini, and thank God she's back here. She missed us the last time we were scheduled, but we played a recording, but we have her live tonight. And we are going to be talking about aspartame and get updated on some of the things that she knows that's going on. Oh, that was You Are Not Alone, accompanied by my dog, Marlo. Oh, he's such a delight. Oh, welcome to the show, Dr. Betty. How are you tonight?
Thank you, Mary. I'm delighted to be back with you again.
Oh, you sound so much better. You sound really good. It's good to hear your voice. Bless your heart.
Thank you. Actually, you know, I've been a lot in the hospital, and after doing this for a quarter of a century, they actually gave me aspartame and Reglan and Zofran, and I stopped breathing and broke out in hives. So this is it's a point.
How did they give you aspartame, Dr. Betty? I mean, I know you make sure you write it down and everything. Do you think that they did it on purpose, or you know, was it in some kind of medication? How did they give it to you?
Well, this is real interesting because I was at Johns Creek, and the doctors are great, and I gave them all the information, and they agreed. And when they wrote a prescription, this shows you that doctors never check to find out what ingredients are in a drug. So they wrote it was filled generically, and as soon as I took it, I knew I had problems, and then they gave me another drug, and it interacted. But if you could have seen me, I was a walking hive, urticaria everywhere, and it happened again on another occasion, and I simply stopped breathing, and they got me breathing back, and it wasn't until when I got out of the hospital and researched it that I realized the doctors had not realized that they were giving me aspartame, and it's
so they're slipping it into the regular medication also.
Well, I don't doubt it. One person said that the report they had seen showed that aspartame is in over 2,000 drug products. And I remember in helping the Center for Disease Control when I was very young that only 10% of anything is reported. And the reason I knew that is they were looking for the cure for leukemia, and they called me and they said, do you realize that you have sent us more cases than the entire Emory University system? In other words, nobody wants to take the time to say, hey, here's another case. So he said across the board, you know, it's usually 10% of reality. So that's it just doesn't get reported. And even when it does, I'll tell you something else. As when I came back and I said, look, on my record it says no aspartame. And I said, you people know about it now, and that the reaction was from aspartame, and would you believe the doctor turned right around and gave me another prescription with aspartame in it? And the nurse says, well, you don't have to use it. I said, you want me to take this to the drugstore and pay for it and then throw it away? I said, you can't do that. Do you understand the liability in giving something to somebody that you know in advance will react? So this is our system today, and I always tell people that if you don't know something about something, you need to research it, because many times the doctors really don't know. In fact, the last time I was in, this doctor said, I know aspartame is bad. I simply just don't know what makes it so bad. And that's because of all the companies, the trade organizations, the FDA, all of them lying about it. And what they do is they tie the hands of the physicians. So that's, I believe, is why so many babies have died. They've got this little heart. It causes sudden cardiac death. And one pediatric organization that reported that babies were dying had asked, they wanted Big Pharma to take it out of things like cough syrup for children. They didn't mention aspartame, you understand, but these across the board that you can pick up with aspartame in it. But as from what I have seen, it's still there. So that is a big problem. People are dying from all sorts of things, and they don't realize the whole basis for this is aspartame.
Well, for those that have never been on the show and don't know much about you, why don't you give out your website and then go over the list of what aspartame is, and because some people don't even know where it is. I mean, you know, I have found so many. Like today, we had our power go out, so I went into the party store and the power was out, and I said, get used to it, because as soon as they EMP our country, it'll be like this all the time.
Yeah, things have gotten so bad. It's just...
Yeah. Did you hear about the naval ships that just docked down there in Florida? The Chinese naval ships?
Oh my goodness. No, I had not heard about that, but that's... nothing surprises me anymore.
No. There's 3 of them down there. And they did some kind of a ceremony with the dragon chasing the golden ball, which means prosperity. And I thought, yeah, I don't even get me going on that.
Well, I know you can't. It's hard to find things made in the USA.
But I just because I know all this stuff, it just spurts out of me like you know. And I just said, hey, get used to it. As soon as they EMP our country, we won't have any power anyway. Mm-hmm. And the girl goes, what's EMP? And then this guy standing there, and I said, do you know what EMP is? And he goes, emergency medical facility? I just shook my head like they are so asleep. You know, these are probably the people that are walking in the store and going, oh, I need a Diet Pop. I don't know what's in it. I need this. I don't know what's in it. You know.
And what's so hard is that it's addictive, and because of the depletion of serotonin, you know, it causes psychiatric behavioral problems, and sometimes it's hard to get to people, to get them the information because they're so far gone.
Well, the night that you were supposed to come on a few weeks back, the day before you came on, my friend from Florida was in Michigan, and he was riding his bike, and I haven't seen him for like 16 years. And he just showed up at my door, and I invited him, and he had his sister with him. I invited them in, and I said, can I get you something to drink, a cup of coffee, a glass of ice water, or, you know, and he says, do you got any Diet Pop? And I said, oh, you want me to poison you?
Well, you know.
And he said, I have to have that. I'm diabetic.
And that's what's causing the diabetic epidemic, of course.
And I said,
and the thing,
you got to listen to Dr. Betty.
Okay, but just to show you what you're saying is so true. When I moved into this neighborhood, the people next door had their house up for sale, and they came over and they sent their son over. They knew the cartoonist who had done something about aspartame, and then their son was home from overseas, and he came in and asked for information to give to the military, and he said it was so very, very bad that he wanted to get the word around. The next thing I know, this woman who lived next door and sold their house said, we are having a little get-together so you can meet all the people around here. And so, because we had just moved in. And I was just horrified when I walked in the kitchen and all the Diet Coke. I said, I don't understand. You thank me for getting the information out. You know it's a poison. Why are you serving it? And she says, well, because some people want it. So I came back to the house and I got a bunch of flyers and information and gave it all out. And, of course, nobody used the aspartame after that. And one man looks at the flyer and says, you know, Bertha, I told you it's poison, and you keep your fridge filled up with Diet Coke. And she says, but that's for my friends. I would never use it. I know it's poison. And I says, you mean to tell me you don't mind poisoning your friends? And that's the way to teach them. It's a poison. Here's some information. Get on Google and research something aspartame dangerous. Do anything, but don't put things in your mouth when you hear, that it is poisonous.
Maybe it's a friend that she doesn't really like, Dr. Betty.
It sounds like it. But I want to give you my website, www.mpwhi.com. And if you can't remember it, it stands for Mission Possible World Health International. And you can go to the Aspartame Resource Guide. In fact, it's a wonderful thing that if you can't remember everything, that you just forward it, because it gives you the history of aspartame, how Don Rumsfeld managed to get it on the market after the FDA had revoked the petition for approval. It has a list of the medical texts, like Dr. Roberts' aspartame disease and ignored epidemic, and it shows the movies, like Sweet Misery, A Poison World, and just about anything, like it'll tell you here's a safe sweetener, which is just like sugar, and information about that. It will give you information about other poisonous products, and sucralose, Splenda, and sulfine potassium. And Dr. Caldwell and Dr. Blaylock have written, have information on detox, how to get it out of your state, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you go to the top of the website, there's little buttons. And if you want to know what even the FDA admitted to are on their stationery, I mean, if you call them and say, hey, I understand it causes seizures and hives and sleep problems and headaches and abdominal pain, then the FDA will say, oh, no, aspartame is safe. And here on their own stationery is the list of 92 symptoms from 4 types of seizures to coma and death. And you can also get into some of the reports. There's banners like Dr. Oni's, who tried to prevent approval, his 49-page report, and how it's compounded with MSG and would cause birth defects. So it's all there. And one thing on the Aspartame Resource Guide is they've got an article I wrote, Rot Gut Aspartame Methanol Mania, and there is some, I would suggest people read that, because one of the most heinous crimes that you can imagine with the FDA is the fact that they made a deal with G.D. Searle never to allow the public to know about the teratology or birth defect studies. And why? Because it was in Jerome Bressler's report. You'll notice on my website it says complete report, where the FDA had removed a lot of the information. They didn't want the public to know that aspartame caused neural tube defects. And on the report, you'll see where the FDA mentions that aspartame causes birth defects, and what it had caused her a cleft palate and neural tube defects and spina bifida, all these things that they had full knowledge and didn't even have the decency to put pregnancy notice on there, that your babies can be born, for instance, with grossly disfiguring malformation encompassing a spectrum of disorders, ranging from cleft palate to spina bifida. So the public, all of a sudden, here we have an epidemic of autism the world over. And the Traco study showed that it not only embalms living tissue, but it damages DNA, which can destroy humanity. So here the FDA has known this, for over 30 years and disregarded it to the people who've lost their babies and their children. In the movie that followed Sweet Misery, called Sweet Remedy, you'll see even more information on what it does to the child, and they interviewed the ADD people who admitted that before the approval of aspartame, that there was very little, if ever, using the terms ADD and ADHD. And that's when aspartame was approved, that's how all these things started happening. And in Dr. Oni's report, you see that it destroys the brain. So there's quite a lot of information for people to know from that website and videos, and you can get Sweet Misery from Corey. I think her email is, Corey at sweetremedyradio.com as far as all those videos are concerned. So that gives you vast knowledge, including the Board of Inquiry report that revoked the petition for approval based on the fact that it could not be proven safe and that it caused brain tumors. So it's all there in writing on their stationery.
Now, Dr. Betty, I want to ask you, what are your views on this, I call it the great deception, of them saying, oh, we're taking aspartame out of our diet pop, and we're using, what are they putting in, another product?
Sucralose or Splenda, and then you're talking about chlorine. And as Dr. James Bowen says, that if you go from aspartame to Splenda, then you will maintain the reactions of aspartame and pick up those of Splenda. In fact, this is how, just like sugar came into being. I was talking to someone who grew herbs in the Amazon rainforest for pharmaceutical companies, and then he quit because pharmaceutical companies, became so dangerous. And I said, Mike, I just don't know what we're going to do. If we get them off aspartame, the first thing they're going to say is, what can I use? I have to have an alternative. And every time you research one of these artificial sweeteners, you see the problems. In fact, Dr. Safredi, that declared aspartame a multipotential carcinogen after doing 3 studies, also did a study on sucralose and found it to be carcinogenic, but of course it would be. So, the information is there. So then I explained to Mike what was needed, and he said, no problem, we'll make it. And I have no financial connection to the company. Dr. Russell Blaylock said, well, we need to have it investigated. And so it was, and it was found to, it's just organic food in it. There's no chemicals or anything. So once that was done, in the Blaylock Wellness report that you can subscribe to, he said, finally, a safe sweetener. So like I said, all that's in the Aspartame Resource Guide, and then you can click on buttons like Aspartame News with new articles and reports on any, for instance, if you were diabetic, you could go to the website and get information which would tell you that it not only precipitates diabetes, but it simulates and aggravates diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, that it destroys the optic nerve, that causes diabetics to go into convulsions, and interacts with insulin, and the methanol makes them lose their limbs. So, if somebody was trying to kill a diabetic, just give them aspartame, because they quickly start all these symptoms.
For those that are diabetic, and the first thing they say, Dr. Betty, is, what do I use then? So why don't you tell them what to use?
That was the whole issue on this and why I made it. Now, here's something interesting. In the case of diabetes, is that they use organic chicory, which was used for 70 years to improve the health of diabetics. And that's why sometimes somebody will call me and say they had all these symptoms. The doctors diagnosed him as being diabetic, and all of a sudden he gets off aspartame, and the doctor says, you're not really diabetic at all, and all your blood work is fine now. And it was the aspartame, and that's been proven on one of the studies, showed that aspartame raises fasting blood sugar. So that's why they get it confused. And then if they go blind, they think, well, they're diabetic, when in fact it's because the methanol converts to formaldehyde and formic acid, and the retina of the eye and destroys the optic nerve. And one thing why it's so important to warn people is that if it's in what is called, right at the beginning before it's done more damage, that it can be reversed and people can get their sight back. And that's a wonderful thing to see. I'll always remember after Return to Eden here in Atlanta had done something on aspartame. They said, let us help you. Give us 16 of the worst things that it's caused. And they made up a booklet called Killer Cola. And after about 6 weeks, the owner calls and says, you're not going to believe what's going on down here. People are walking out of wheelchairs that thought they had MS, and seizures have stopped, and all these programs. I said, well, my telephone number is not even in that brochure. But I said this morning, I opened the door and a woman fell into my arms, and she said, I was blind and now I can see. So that shows you how important it is to warn people.
And it's not just in cola. Why don't you explain some of the products that they hide it in?
Okay.
The medicine is one.
Yes, and if it's a certain amount, they don't have to put it in there, and it's reportedly in at least 2,000 drugs. But you remember the controversy, and people still ask about it, is that they petitioned the FDA to allow aspartame in dairy products without labeling. And you keep asking, did they do it, and of course you feel certain that they have, and then comes along another petition asking that it not be labeled in jams. That's something a lot of people don't know. So that's why this is not like it was 30 years ago, where you can go through the grocery store and say, want some of that, want some of that. Today you have to read the labels and see what it is, because you have to understand that aspartame is not an additive. It's a deadly drug.
Has aspartame in it, and usually a lot of people buy that and say, my kid's getting fat, so I'll get the low-fat chocolate milk, and you're poisoning your child.
There is an organization who has just petitioned the Federal Trade Organization to prevent this diet being put on labels, when in fact it makes you crave carbohydrates, so you gain weight. I know Sharon Fowler did a big study in Texas on it. It's well known. So it is absolutely, people should research. You could get on Google and stay there for 30 days and you wouldn't get it all on the damaging. Here's something else that people don't know, and that is the fact that it's an endocrine disrupting drug. And so it stimulates prolactin and changes the menses. So people think that they're infertile. And so when they find out, they get off aspartame and they can get pregnant. But then if they get back on again, you have to remember it's a teratogen causing birth defects, and it can kill the baby. There's just so many things that it can do. And that's why you have to be so careful.
Well, I was doing some research on blackstrap molasses, because I've been doing that with the baking soda in the morning to handle candida in your body, and raise your pH. And blackstrap molasses, one of the things that I found interesting about it regulates your insulin.
That is interesting.
Yeah, check it out. Google benefits of blackstrap molasses, and it'll pull up an article, and it'll have all the benefits on there. And it said, this is the other thing that I found that was interesting. It said a lot of people that are diabetic will say, well, I can't eat that because that's sugar made of beets. but it does not affect diabetics. It's good for their insulin. It regulates it. And you get all kinds of minerals out of it. Check it out. Ever since I've been doing it, because I was doing it in the morning with real maple syrup and the baking soda, but I switched over to the molasses because there are many, many more benefits from it.
Well, that's good to know. What I am incidentally on right now is Dr. Caldwell's detox products, and it seems to have helped me a whole lot. So you can look into that, and then read Dr. Blaylock's What to Do If You've Used Aspartame, and he'll tell you what to avoid and what you can use and what you cannot use. And he told, Dr. Blaylock told me, he says, we can, get rid of a lot of the problems. But the only thing you can't get out of the body is the formaldehyde. And Dr. Monty's book, let's see, it's called While Science Sleeps, A Sweetener Kills. It goes into all these different aspects. You can't put the book down. I know. I keep buying them and giving them to journalists, and they're just absolutely shocked when they realize what's going on. So.
Well, Dr. Betty, for someone who's diabetic, because they're so curious, why does the doctor tell me that I should go and drink diet pop and then the other thing is a lot of people chew gum and they don't realize it's in gum.
Let me give you some good news. I know Dr. Walton mentioned that even if it doesn't say aspartame on the gum, he says it's in all gums. And I was talking to just like sugar people because they'd been trying to make a safe one. You can't make it on the same machine, as something petroleum-based or where you put gum that has aspartame on it. And he said that they are very close now to making a gum for people that, just have to have their gum that is aspartame and chemical-free. So that's wonderful. That was the best news I'd heard for a while.
I had a county worker up here in front of my house one day. He stopped and was talking to me, and he was chewing gum away, and I said, "Oh, you like that gum, huh?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, he goes, "Want some?" I said, "Is it sugarless?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "No, I don't poison myself."
Well, when I was in the hospital, somebody with the IV people came in. He was chewing gum, and I was telling him, but he didn't really want to listen because he was that far gone. And when I couldn't get through to him, I gave him another paper that people might like. It's called the Excuse-O-Matic. So if you were living under certain delusions about aspartame, it will put them to rest, and that's on our website as well, the Aspartame Excuse-O-Matic.
Yeah, name off a few of the diseases that you get from ingesting aspartame.
Well, it can trigger or precipitate MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Basically, the neurodegenerative products. And so the medical text, which I think they have it on Amazon.com now, Dr. Roberts' dad, but he left me his 30 years of research. But anyway.
Did you say Dr. Robert died?
Yes, he did. Broke my heart.
My God, I was just going to ask you if you could get him on the show for me.
Well, I'll tell you, it really did. It broke my heart. And he, on his deathbed, he asked me to please continue his work. And one of his sons, who's also a physician, got in touch with me and said that, he can rest in peace now. He knows because he spent 30 years in the trenches of medical practice getting people off of aspartame. And he should have been nominated for the Nobel Prize.
Absolutely. I just watched one of his videos, and because I'm working on doing a show about the vaccines and what they're doing to people, and I was going to see if I could have him on to speak about it. I had no idea. I'm in shock, Dr. Betty.
Well, he had a heart problem, and it had just really destroyed most of his heart. I don't know what it is that caused it, but he knew he was dying, and I think he was somewhere around 87 or 88 years old, and he knew he was dying. And I said, "Well, there's a resurrection."
I'll keep him in my prayers.
Yeah, and he says to me, he didn't really believe in the resurrection. I says, "Well, Dr. Roberts, when you pop up again, we'll talk about it."
Oh, well, I will keep him. I will say a prayer for him tonight when I say my prayers.
Oh, good. He was a fine
what I could do is probably just take one of his lectures and maybe play that on the show, because I really want to get the information out about the vaccines. I just went round and round with somebody. They told me to quit giving out all this disinformation.
Well, it's sort of like when they're giving out flu shots. It was in front of a grocery store, and Dr. Russell Blaylock, has written some excellent papers about it, and you can Google flu shot and Alzheimer's and find out this information. And even though they tried to push it, I just went out. They had a big table out there, and I said, Dr. Blaylock says thus and so, and everybody just walked away and didn't get it,
Well, they're giving them out free at the drugstores now, and I just read an article that Chris had sent to me about the drugstores are targeting senior citizens with their flu shots and their vaccines. And in that article, it said so far this year, 22 seniors have died from getting the shots.
Well, let me tell you, it was worse than that when, when this flu was out some years ago, and they said pregnant women and children first or something like that. And Dr. Blaylock got in touch with me, and he said, you got to tell people if they are pregnant and they get the flu shot, they can lose their baby. And it was just before all this was happening, and I didn't think I could get it to a lot of people, but at the time, but 35 women at least called me that read my notice alone, and they had passed it on, that said that within the day after getting the flu shot, they had lost their babies. And that it was just, all this stuff is just insane. Like Dr. Blaylock told me about the shingles shot. He says that's a live virus. He said that's going to give people shingles. In fact, I was mentioning it to Esther Sokol, who is Dr. Roberts' sister, and she says, now you tell me. She says that's what happened. She got the shingles shot and just had all these problems. This was years ago. And then she got the shingles after having the shingles shot, and says she still has neurological problems because she took it. And if you go by drugstores here, you'll see in the window we have the shingles shot.
Yeah.
Then you have to realize that aspartame interacts with vaccines and has been in a couple of vaccines. So, the problem just goes on and on when you think you've
well, and they're also targeting the children, because now I hear they want to give that human papillonian virus shot to the boys.
Oh, that's something else Dr. Roberts was so upset about. He says, when we went to school, they gave you the, whooping cough and the measles, and a couple. He said now, before children go to school, they have given them all these different vaccines, and that they just don't have a chance. So,
and this is what I was trying to explain to this person, because they said, well, my mother didn't get me vaccines, and then I had to get them all at once to go to school. And I said, well, how old were you? What year was it? Back in the 50s. I said, well, back in the 50s, it was a lot different than it is now.
Absolutely.
You only got 6 or 7 shots. Now, I think you get, 38?
Well, a lot. I mean, Dr. Blaylock was just, he gets so upset about this, and he has written one of the best articles on vaccines I've ever seen. I think we have it on our website under vaccines.
Could you could you forward me a copy of that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And you read that, and you understand what's going on. So,
well, I know so many people, Dr. Betty, that have autistic children, and it just breaks my heart. It really does.
And then you see these doctors who really care and have cures for this, that, and the other. And I'm sure you've known that so many of them have been murdered, alternative medicine doctors lately. In fact, it was last Saturday. This doctor just jumped out of his window. So all these things that are happening because in alternative medicine, that they at least have help, and they can get them off of aspartame and MSG and follow the instructions of some of these great doctors that are just brilliant, that are listed on that aspartame resource guide. Now, Dr. Blaylock is no longer in practice. He was in, neurosurgery about 26 years. Then he practiced nutrition for 3 years. But I tell people that the next best thing to being able to see him is the fact that he's written such good books like Health and Nutrition Secrets to Save Your Life, and that goes into the vaccines. And I'd say he's written several of them: Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills, and Strategies for Cancer patients. So these physicians who devoted their life to warning the public, at least have put the information out. So if they're that continually that information will be available if people would do the research.
Well, one of the things about the blackstrap molasses is that if you have damaged organs, which I know aspartame, damages your body inside, it regenerates and regrows fresh cells.
That's nice to know because it.
And do you know they use that in burn units when they try to get the skin to grow, when they put, graft the skin? They put blackstrap molasses on it because it helps the cells regenerate and grow.
I have heard that. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I have heard that. So there are such good things out there.
Yeah, they say if you just burn your finger or something in the kitchen, just put some on and help it heal.
I know. It reminds me of one time I got up in the morning, and I'm not very tall. I never go through life knowing what's on the top shelf. But I had a microwave built in, and I put some water in there, and it had been boiling for like 20 minutes. And I opened the microwave, and all that hot water just came out on my chest. There was no skin on my hands. And the doctor just shook his head. He said, "Betty, I don't know what to tell you, but when you get better," he said, "at least we'll get you a plastic surgeon," because I had 2nd and 3rd degree burns. And so I came back to see him a couple of weeks later, and he just jumped back, He said, "I know you have formulas for this, that, and the other, but how your skin's normal now." I said, "Dr. Capo, welcome to the field of alternative medicine."
There you go.
And all I had done was I knew that if you allowed it to dry, it would scar. Is that every 2 hours I'd take the bandages off and used aloe vera, some other things, and in 2 weeks I was fine.
Well, I had a friend that contacted me from India, and his son had lost both of his kidneys, and he had received a kidney from his mother, and he was very upset. He said, "My son's rejecting the kidney, and he has infection, and he's just getting out of the hospital, but he's still not doing well, and we're very worried that he's going to lose the kidney." And I told him, I said, "Do the blackstrap molasses and the baking soda. It'll help him regenerate his cells." he emailed me a month later and told me I was a walking angel on this earth.
I'll go on.
And there were things you can do for the kidneys, like pumpkin seeds, and I told him all the different things to do, and he said that he's fine now. So I believe the molasses helped him heal that kidney.
I don't doubt it. And there's so many things that that people can do that are available if they research. Like you can get a water machine that raises the pH, and
I have that. You can actually buy the water bottles that raise the pH now. They're not cheap, but you can. They're about $100 a piece.
Well, this was.
I think there's like 750 gallons of water.
Yeah, that's really a good price. I got mine from Ed Johnson, who is he was a prosecutor before using aspartame and got a brain tumor or another one, but he said that's what made him do real well, and so I bought one from him. But if you want information on it, his email is edjohnson@stic.net, and that will
Does his filter take out fluoride?
He has something you connect. Excuse me, has something you connect to it. It removes the fluoride, and if you want to know, you can just email him, and he'll send you information on it.
Well, I've been I've been researching the Shelley water, and it takes out 8% fluoride, and it raises the pH to 9.5. But you know what I've been noticing on Facebook, on the side of the, where they advertise every once in a while, there are other companies that are coming out too with the pH water bottles.
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing it. I'm
starting to become a thing. I mean, people are becoming aware.
Yeah, they really are. And in fact, I did a lot of research myself, and I just felt like that was best. So that's what I got.
Are you okay, Dr. Betty? Need to stop?
Yeah, I just got something in my throat. I was just getting a little water.
Yeah, go ahead and take a sip of water. We'll wait for you. Don't
I'm
your
fine.
throat.
So anyway, I would recommend that people read. In fact, I had reprints made. I've had them. I make them 500 at a time. But read the article, Rot Gut Aspartame Methanol Mania. I wrote it for the National Health Federation. It's Freedom News is the name of their magazine. The thing about it is I'm always somewhere with these, and even people that thought they knew about aspartame read that and got off of it, some of the diehards, So that's something that will help, and you can take that to school if you have children. And then I asked the doctors if they would all write an article on how aspartame destroys the brains, and they did. And so you can get on my website, and you'll see all these banners, and you can click on Report for Schools. It is long because you've got testimony from the ADD people, Dr. Roberts, Dr. Blaylock, Dr. Walton, even one from me. But it's all there in one document, so you can email it to the principal, the Board of Education. It's all in one document, so that they can pick and choose what they want to present. And that got it out of grammar schools and grammar, and then the middle schools. It's still in the high schools, unfortunately, but that's a good way to go.
Oh, yeah, they want to target those high school girls to make them think they're going to stay thin.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was talking about a little earlier, that an organization had filed with the organization on testimony that they are declaring aspartame to be, a diet product, when in fact it makes you gain weight. And I wrote to them myself, Federal Trade, and they said they just really didn't have the resources or some excuse on why they could not take this on and get the word diet out of it. And it makes you feel like somebody got to them because that's their job. They can't say, well, we don't want to do that investigation because all the work's been done. There are all these studies showing that aspartame can trigger obesity and all the problems that it causes, and it's all independent research where you're known to disregard anything from industry defending its product because they were shown to have committed fraud. G.D. Searle did during original studies, and they had two sets of studies. They simply could not get aspartame to show safety. So if they've got an industry article that just says, oh, we retested, it's fine, to disregard those. In fact, Dr. Walton had done a report for 60 Minutes showing that 92% of all independent studies show aspartame, to have the problems that it does, and that if you eliminate 6 studies that the FDA had something to do with as they're part of the cover-up, and one pro-industry summary, 100% of independent peer-reviewed research has it all laid out on what aspartame causes, and it goes right along with the medical text, which is 1,000 pages on these diseases.
Well, a diabetic, when they say to me, I see them all the time. In fact, I seen a lady in the line at the grocery store last time I went in, and she had all this pop, and you could just tell. I just looked at what she had in there, and I said, oh, you got a diabetic at the house? She goes, yeah, my husband. I said, you realize that that's all poisoning him? And she said, looked at me really strange. I gave her the information about your website and everything and told her. She said, I never knew. And I said, it causes diabetes. But one of the things that I found on my Wednesday night call on the holistic healing, have you ever heard of cutting the ends off of okra and putting it in a glass of water, soaking it overnight, and then drinking the water in the morning? Have you ever heard that?
No.
It's supposed to regulate your insulin and it cures you of being a diabetic.
Well, I don't doubt it. I know that the formula that I used when I had cancer, somebody used it for someone that was diabetic, and all of a sudden, the diabetes disappeared. So anything that purifies the blood is going to. Yeah.
And see, that's what the blackstrap molasses does. It said on that article that it purifies your blood and it regulates your insulin. And he said a lot of diabetics will say, oh, that's a sugar, but it's made of sugar beets. And it said it's a myth that a diabetic can't eat molasses. They can. Actually, it benefits their insulin. It regulates your insulin. And also, it's recommended that pregnant women take it because it generates cells in the placenta.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like good stuff.
Yeah, I should be out there in front of the store selling it instead of the vaccines, eh?
Yeah. Everybody always wants to know, what do I do next? What do I do? What can be used? And we do try to put some of that, on the website, or got the doctors, to write what's good for you, like Dr. Blaylock's What to Do If You've Used Aspartame, that will tell you not to use this, but you can use this. And so it just takes a little research, and after all, it may mean your life.
Did you ever see the video that they have online, how to use cola to clean rust off of your car?
I think I have.
After watching that, you don't want to drink a cola, even if it's regular. I saw that. It's like, oh, my God. I couldn't believe it. It's like, can you imagine what it's doing to your stomach?
Yeah, I know. Well, you have to remember that it has phosphoric acid in it. And so that's, what it's doing to your body. My husband had a chemical company at one time, made things like toilet bowl cleaner. and that's phosphoric acid. You see, that's why people use, Coke to clean toilets if they're out of toilet bowl cleaner. It's that phosphoric acid.
I saw a video for that. Best thing to clean your toilet with, Coca-Cola.
Absolutely. And so that's a lot of people will get the generic brand of toilet bowl cleaner, and that usually is citric acid. That's like to begin with. Coke used citric acid, and then they decided, that they could get a cheaper version, phosphoric acid, which made them more money, but was much more detrimental. So there you go.
Well, I just, in the fact that I'm not a doctor, and I try to tell people about diabetes and that, they just look at me like, I've had people say, who made you a doctor? I said, nobody. I got this research from people that are doctors.
Right.
It's just like, don't kill the messenger, please.
I know, and that's just what happens, that's, in fact, people ask me, what do? I said, basically, I'm the messenger, and that I bring to the public what the experts have found, on the product, and that's, and it saves so many lives. I know, even though I have an honorary degree, that one time I was talking to Dr. Roberts. I said, I wish I'd went on to medical school. I might be able to help more. And he said, no, Betty, you couldn't have. He said, what you're doing is saving more lives by getting people off of it. If you had become a physician, you might not have got all the information yourself, or you would have got false information. And that's why this is so important. Some people go through life, never saving a life, where you can prevent so much disability and suffering and death, just getting people off of it. So
I always use your little line about, if I see men with I tell them, you realize that makes you impotent. I mean, that goes right to their head, like, oh my God, they put it down, the look in their eyes is like, you're kidding.
I know. When I went up to Alabama, I think, to do a TV program one day, and ran into somebody who was a sexologist or something like that, and he was treating people who were impotent, had male sexual dysfunction. And it was interesting that when I gave him all the information, I said, I bet most of your people are diabetic using it. And he says, as a matter of fact, they're all the ones that he had at that time were all diabetic. So they were all on aspartame immediately. It had that ruined male sexual dysfunction, and it also ruins female response. So it just literally destroys marriages.
So it destroys health. It destroys humanity is what it's doing.
Right. Touche. Well said.
Between that and the chemtrails they're spraying on us, and now they're bombarding us with the foreign soldiers, I feel like I get up every day and I'm walking in the twilight zone. In fact, I have a friend in Washington State that I was talking to the other day, and I said, I had heard that the angels show us what we come down here for, and this is a school, and we have to learn to evolve and become good people by the time we leave, or we'll have to come back. And I said, so I'm trying to get it right the first time. And I said, if somebody showed me that I had to come here and go through what I'm going through and do this, I must have been nuts.
That reminds me of the Bible. It talks about the Nephilim. The Nephilim, these were angels in heaven, and they were looking down, and they could see the beauty of women, and so they came to earth and married them. They were just eliminated during the flood, but that's just very true. That's what they wanted. So the angels don't have what humans have, and that was why it helps you understand the Bible as it's explained.
Yeah, you know what? I had just seen that. I think it was on the History Channel. They were talking about Noah and the flood and how God told him to get in the ark 7 days before the flood. and that the Nephilim were drowned and the giants were wiped out and all that during that.
Right. And occasionally, they have found evidence of that. So.
Well, I have been seeing that they are finding a lot of these skeletons of the giants.
Yeah, I think that I was yesterday. My husband was watching something on TV about it. I didn't have time to look, but they had dug up some of these bones.
Yeah, they're massive. I saw a picture on Facebook of one, and the man that was standing down in what they had uncovered, the head was as big as that man's body.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, they were massive.
Yeah, that sounds like the way it's discussed in the Bible.
Yeah, that's kind of scary for me. But, I was telling her, I said, boy, I must have been out of my mind to sign up for this. And you know what she said to me? She said, oh, no, you're doing what you were brought here to do, and that was to warn the people.
Right. There's another scripture in the Bible that talks about the watchman and warning that if you fail to warn, their blood will be asked back from you. And it's a very good point. Some people, they get off of aspartame and they warn everybody they know. Don't let what happened to me happen to you. And yet there are others, they're so glad to get off of it and get their health back, but they never warn others. And when it's as epidemic as this, you're talking about, the whole human race and how important it is. And it may be, somebody in your family that doesn't know. For instance, you can just imagine, if I've been doing this for 25 years, the first people that got the information were people that were in the family. And yet I guess it's been about 17 years now, my husband's cousin came to Atlanta, and she said, I'm really in a hurry. I'm on my way to Florida. I just wanted to stop by and let you know about this man by the name of Reed that was in the family. Information had been sent, and they said that he probably won't make it through the night, and that he is, or he may already be dead. So I said, whoa, Mary Lee, wait a minute. Does he use a lot of NutraSweet? Is he diabetic, for instance? And is he going blind? And does he have MS symptoms? And I was going on and on and on. And she says, gee, that's exactly what he has. And yes, he's diabetic. I said, well, call him and tell him to get off of it. And she says, well, he's probably already dead. I said, listen, Mary Lee, call him or I will. And it was so kind of humorous the way she said it. She said, William, Betty says you don't have to die after all. Just get off the NutraSweet. And I had to laugh, But anyway, it was later when she came back from Florida about 10 days later, she says, do you know that they're in shock that all of his seizures have stopped and he's going to be okay? And then about a month later, I got a letter from his doctor saying that, he had absolutely no idea. So they were planning the funeral. And if Mary Lee had, just not stopped. So, you may think all your family knows. They don't. And when you proceed to warn everybody, it gets around like that. My own brother almost died on it. And he said, well, he got Agent Orange from, Monsanto, and he wasn't going to give up this. And I told him, I said, you're going to have a heart attack. And then the next thing that comes is bypass surgery, which is exactly what happened. And so I went to the VA hospital, to see him. And I said, I want to tell you something. You ever put that stuff back in your body that that I'm not even going to send my cat to see you. So anyway, and I can't even say he got off because of me, his wife, because it changes your personality. His wife said, either get off of it or a divorce. And he got off of it, and he's fine today. But you see, these are even family members.
Yeah.
Family members that
my
may
brother
not have
was
taken it seriously.
and he died.
Yeah, and for instance, my husband went to Michigan to see somebody, I guess it was a couple of years ago, and it had been like 16 years since William Reed was told he was dying, and he's still alive today.
Well, you have to have broad shoulders, don't you, Dr. Betty? Because I'm telling you right now, there's been people that I've helped them with information, and then I've told them information, and I've actually turned around and caught them laughing at me behind my back, like, oh, there she goes again, the crazy one, and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I don't care. I have broad shoulders, and I scoff it off because I look at it this way. Even if I just help one person, then I did my job.
Absolutely, emphatically. And, you know, our Mission Possible Florida, they did that to her. Her husband owned a country club, and so they supplied aspartame products, and this woman got on them, and her personality changed, and she was walking down the street naked. And the sheriff, because it causes bipolar, you know, that's what she was diagnosed with. And so they knew the sheriff, who picked her up and took her to a mental hospital. And then a few days later, she was just fine, and she researched it and realized it. But the neighbors who were addicted to it were giving her a hard time. And her car is white. And when I was down there to see her, she got these signs. I guess they have a magnet on it. She put them in the car. And if you see her drive by, it says aspartame kills. Don't drink that diet soda. But, you know, she wanted to be vindicated. And immediately her husband took out all aspartame products from the country club.
Mm.
And she's warning out there, warning people. Denise is her name, warning people. And, here's some interesting new news that you might like. A lady by the name of Priscilla called, and she had a colonoscopy and got some aspartame in it, which led her to me. And she is now disabled just from that, you know, with certain diseases. So she goes to the grocery store because she found Diet Coke in her house, even though she didn't use it. And she was at the checkout counter and started talking to this woman who turned out to be the wife of a researcher at Fort Detrick. And she was told that he's the one that did the studies showing aspartame to be a biochemical warfare weapon. But that just happened recently, and I don't know if you got the email on it, but it's on rents.com.
Small world, huh?
Yes. And there's so many articles about it. If you read, you can Google The Ecologist in 2005, and it starts out with, once upon a time there was a biochemical warfare weapon. But years earlier, let's see who had it. It was Alex Constantine wrote an incredible article, which you can Google, and let's see, what the name of it was, Nutripoison. So you can read that, and he explains and gives the information on aspartame as a biochemical warfare weapon.
And we have to be so careful. I mean, you know, like, everyone seems to think it's just the Diet Cola, but it's not. It's in yogurt. It's in milk. It's in orange juice. I saw a woman that was pregnant that was buying Crystal Light, and she said, well, I quit drinking pop because I'm pregnant. I said, that's poison.
Yeah. You can end up with an autistic child and all the Tourette's and all these other problems. And also, the very, very worst is the neural tube defects, which are often manifested as grotesquely disfiguring malformation. So these poor children, and yet the FDA allowed it out there without a warning. A lot of things are happening in France. I don't know if you heard, but they sold the aspartame industry there for $1.12. And you're hearing that correct. It was on Google, and of course on Google it said €1, and €1 is $1.12. And that was the work of Corinne Goulet, Mission Possible France, who's no longer alive. But that's how far that we have come.
Well, it's like they want illness as big business for the doctors, isn't it?
Yeah, and, you know, I always said from the very beginning that if you don't buy it, they can't sell it, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening. It's the word now is that it's bad, and I think in France, we have the article on my website, but it tells you they were losing $1 million a week. I think I had it down as a month and reread it. What it said in the news clip, it was actually $1 million a week because people are no longer buying it.
And aspartame also adds into Alzheimer's, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's interesting, too, is that an informant told me that the National Soft Drink Association had done a 10-year study on humans, and that it showed blindness, which we knew about, and birth defects and Alzheimer's. And that's interesting because when I was on TWA years ago, I stopped there on my way to New Mexico, and I was giving out flyers, and this man says, you know, I know more about this than you do. I said, really? Well, tell me about it. And then he said that that they rented a room to a doctor, and he said that the aspartame industry attorneys had told them that if they tell people that it causes Alzheimer's, that they'll lose their license. So that was just an admission to begin with.
Well, I was just researching an article where, did you hear about that the chemtrails are coming down in Texas and in Arizona, and now I also heard that it's happening in Ohio, but it's like raining cobwebs out of the sky.
Well, you know, Dr. Russell Blaylock is the physician that is so concerned, you know, over this issue. He said, Betty, you cannot go back. He said things won't grow. People will be coming down with neurodegenerative changes. It's got barium and aluminum, and they were here in Atlanta. And so I put out the information on it that we have on web. But I asked him, I said, what in the world can we do? And he said, well, use curcumin, you know, before you go to sleep at night. So that's sulfur.
Yeah.
So that's I faithfully do that. I consider Dr. Blaylock, you know, one of the most brilliant physicians, but he's more than that. You know, he really cares. He's a humanitarian, and he's always trying to help people.
Too. You know, they actually sell curcumin and turmeric in pill together.
Say that again. What do they do with the curcumin?
Turmeric. Curcumin and turmeric are both the ones that you're supposed to take.
Right.
And they actually now they're selling it in a supplement in one pill, curcumin, turmeric together.
Who makes it?
It is through Botanic Choice.
Okay, well, I'll look that up.
You know, check them out, Dr. Betty. You can find them online, botanicchoice.com, and they always have, they're a family-run business. I order from them all the time, never had a problem. One time they sent me the wrong thing, and I called them and I said, you sent me the one wrong thing. And she said, well, we'll get it out right away. I said, well, how do I get this back to you? She goes, oh, well, you just keep it.
Okay, so it's Botanic
Choice.
Okay.
.com.
I think I get it.
And they always have like 65% off. In fact, I just got a flyer from them where they're selling the aloe vera pills, 90 in a bottle for $7. And they also have the oregano for $5. Well, I just bought the oregano gel caps because I had read an article where if you take oregano gel caps on a regular basis, that it will kill any kind of virus. It was a doctor that had done a study, and he even said Ebola. He put all these viruses in Petri dishes, put oregano, a liquid oregano in it, and within a week all the viruses were gone.
You know, I tend to believe that because I know that when I was doing a radio program, I guess it was in Chicago, WLW, that on the morning of the radio show, I woke up and couldn't talk. I had bronchitis so bad, And somebody, so they said, well, will you just do the show anyway? And I said, okay, but I'm afraid they may not understand me. And this woman called in and said, get her some oregano. She could stay on the line.
Yeah, and
so
you
I
don't
went
get
and
the
got
flu either.
Yeah, I got it, and it cleared up my voice very quickly.
Yeah, you need to take it all the time. They sell these they're little tiny gel caps, and they just ran a special on those where if you bought 2, you got 3 free.
Yeah. Well, I would like that in gel caps because I was taking it by liquid, and it doesn't taste very good.
Yeah.
So
they also sell the little garlic gel caps, and I take those too and I had just done Wednesday on my show. We talked about heart disease, and we listened to Dr. Axe had said that when you have plaque in your arteries by your heart, it's because you have a tear in your artery, and your plaque is trying to mend that tear. And the more abuse you give your arteries and they damage, the more the plaque lays on. So he talked about how to heal that. And guess how you heal that? With garlic gel caps.
Well, here's another thing that happened to me. I was in the hospital with pneumonia, and Jeff Rentz had sent me something called Allison. There's garlic capsules and there's, garlic tablets or whatever. But he said it has to be Allison, and it's like better than 38 antibiotics or something. I can't remember exactly what it said about it, but I noticed that I got, really well very fast. So it was interesting that I was reading an article about 2 weeks ago, and I think I have it somewhere. It was interesting that they had done a study on it at the University of Edinburgh. So you can Google that and get the whole study, and they were just absolutely amazed at the things that it could do.
Yeah.
So, but we have garlic supplements, but I've never seen anything work that fast, and I can't even remember exactly how it's spelled. I think it's AOLICIN, but Jeff Rentz at Rentz.com has it on his website.
Oh, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I do on Wednesday night. I Mike Goldberg, he wrote a couple books on the Road to Happiness and the Health and Wellness book, and he gives that all out for free. And we research the holistic healing. We cover different topics every week. Next week, we'll be talking about kidney stones, how to naturally cleanse them out of your body and what to do to prevent getting them.
Well, let me tell you, I've had that too. I know you must think I spend most of my time in the hospital, but there is nothing as painful, including childbirth, as a kidney stone is. And when I used to have medical clinics and doctors working for me, is that if Grady, it's a charitable hospital, and the people don't have any money that go there, and they would feel so bad because they knew about the pain, especially in men, and they would call up and say, can we send you this patient, or he'll wait 8 hours in all this pain. So when I got it, and I always took them, and our doctors gave them whatever they needed, and they didn't have to wait, and we didn't charge them or anything else. But that is one of the worst things. So what I used was hydrangea root, and I forgot the name of the product, but Whole Foods has it, that has that in it that breaks. You might want to research that, but it's hydrangea root, and whatever my husband got me, I was fine right after using it.
Mhm. Well, I heard that cod liver oil, if you have one and you're passing it, helps you pass it without the pain.
Yeah, and I think that there's 2 different kinds of cod liver oil, because someone gave me some once, and they said you have to get, this version. But it's all there for you to research. A lot of people want you to do it for them. But if today in this mass information highway we have on Google, you could simply put in there, what treats this, what is, what you should use, what warning signs are, and you can get that off. In fact, I tell people the reason I do this is that in this case, if somebody was trying to check out aspartame, they would go to the FDA and they'd say it's safe. They'd go to the trade organizations, and all these people are lied to. So when they are doing their research, they're not getting the facts. And so the fact that they are being poisoned and not able to get the information until we put it on web, except for, what the aspartame wars were. That's why we do it, because then we can say, do your research. Everything's a matter of public record. Everything that I say, about aspartame, I have the records behind it. And anything I didn't have, I surely have now, since Dr. Roberts gave me his 30 years of research.
See, that's what we need to do when we have a health problem, is go and look what we can do holistically for it before we run and start taking the poison.
Right. I mean, I could have died in the emergency room. And if and this is with all my research. And in fact, in the movie, I know you've seen Sweet Misery. One of the last cases was a woman who had fibromyalgia, and it hardens the synovial fluids, aspartame does. And so I had told her about prolotherapy, and she ended up having something done to her kneecaps. But I said, well, when you go in the hospital, you need to tell them not to give you aspartame. You're chemically hypersensitive. And they wrote it down, and then they turned right around and gave her some Crystal Light with aspartame in it, and they called code blue and had to resuscitate her to save her life. So you can see how important that is.
Yeah, well, and that tells you they don't pay attention.
A lot of people have to use EpiPens. It's sort of like Jack Samuels. He's dead now, but he has the website. It's still there, truthandlabeling.org, because he could go into anaphylactic shock with MSG, and he had to carry all of his food around with him, and so that he would not get any of it. But even when, let's see, what is the name of that product? They approved some kind of product that you put on food, some kind of a pesticide, and it had MSG in it. And he said, Betty, I almost died from eating a potato. So that's how important it is today for people to check. That was Dr. Oney's point too, who recently died, was the fact that if you're using aspartame and then you get something with MSG, it compounds it. And the doctors don't know about the interaction. There's just so much information out there that you could just research for years and not get it all.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been doing. And you're absolutely right. People don't want to do the research. I think that's why they come into my show on Wednesday, because we do it for them.
Right, exactly.
We've even come to the point where we've covered so much that we say, okay, we're taking any suggestions. If you have something you have a problem with, you want us to research it, and we'll do the show next week on that. So that's what we're doing now.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You never know how many lives that you save that way. I know one of the radio programs, I guess it was in Ohio, where I'd mentioned about the infertility, and this man thought he'd never have grandchildren, and he told his daughter what I had said. She got off of it, and anyway, he called in about a little over a year later and said he now had a grandson. They just didn't have the information available. They just didn't know about it.
Could you imagine if you stood in front of an infertility clinic and said, hey, guess what? For a couple dollars, I could make you have a baby instead of $10,000.
Well, that information got out. I don't know if I've told it on your show or not.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, that the lady was in the grocery store with a cart full of Diet Coke, and it turned out. I kept giving her flyer after flyer, doctor's reports, and then she took it to her doctor, and he said, well, before you adopt, you've been 10 years at it, what's the harm in not using it? And she didn't write this anyway. It was written by Dr. H.J. Roberts, and she had said the nerve of that woman telling me that I couldn't get pregnant because I was using aspartame. And when I saw her, she was, coming down the street with this little blonde little girl hanging on to it. She said, you're the one that took away my Diet Coke. And I said, yeah. And it was a fertility clinic. And so the baby was named after Dr. Roberts. They call her Roberta. And the doctor got all of his patients that were infertile at the infertility clinic off of it. And he says, if you ever see that woman again, just tell her there's a run on the name Roberta. They all got pregnant. So, it's just a matter of getting, that's our mission.
Yeah.
You got over 6 billion people on planet Earth, and we're trying to get the information to all of them. That's the mission of Mission Possible.
Well, I think that, like I said, we all have our part, and as long as we do our part, like we said, even if we help just one person, but we see it more and more, Dr. Betty, of all the different people that come back and tell us, oh, you helped me, or,
Oh,
that makes it all worth it.
And, when I started Mission Possible, I borrowed a network of 900,000 people. And I told them, I said, you know what? All you have to do is give out one flyer a day. Because if you have, today, 900,000 people that now know aspartame is poison, and they give out one flyer the next day, almost 2 million people more know about aspartame. So that's all it's required, and that's how it got around the world. And
that lady that had all them products in her cart, and it seems like a stupid question, but she said, well, can he still eat the non-sweetened stuff from the bakery, the diabetic stuff from the bakery?
Are you really going to trust him if he's selling?
And I said to her, well, what do you think they use for sugar? I said, they're probably using aspartame. You'd have to go back there and ask them what makes this sugar-free. If they're using stevia or something like that, But I would go and ask them what they're using for sweetener in the product.
Absolutely. Dr. Walton said that every doctor should take a history of what the patient is using to see if they're on aspartame. And I heard that there's a clinic here in Atlanta that won't even see you if you're on aspartame until you get off of it, because how can they help you while you're still poisoning yourself every day? So your doctors are catching on. The information is out there now. There's no turning back.
Well, just name us a few of the side effects that you get from it.
Well, the first thing, headache is number one on the FDA chart, and we know that. And also, Splenda 2 causes the headaches. And then dizziness, it destroys the central nervous system. And as the FDA points out, the third one is change in mood quality or level, and that's because it's depleting serotonin, and you have no control over this. And then came vomiting and nausea, abdominal pain and cramps, change in vision all the way to blindness. In fact, I wondered why the FDA report didn't say blindness outright. It said change in vision, and the FDA said that the cases of blindness are in that. In other words, they just put vision change. But so enough people went blind on it they knew of that in 1986 they tried to ban it on the basis of the blindness from the methanol and the seizures. Then it goes into diarrhea, seizures and convulsions, memory loss. That's so prevalent, it's like number 9. And you can understand about so many people getting Alzheimer's. Every once in a while, some hospice will call and say, why are we getting people with Alzheimer's that are like age 30 or less? But then fatigue, it causes chronic fatigue syndrome, neurological problems, a rash, the rosacea is one that it triggers. It's interesting. That's from the methanol that you see that. And a lot of doctors will say, that it's uncurable, that you can't. But if it's from aspartame, usually in a few months it disappears. Sleep problems, it triggers insomnia. Hives, and I can testify to that one myself. Change in heart rate, and Dr. Roberts says it causes an irregular heart rhythm, and that it interacts with all cardiac medication and damages the cardiac conduction system and causes sudden death, which is why a lot of the athletes have died. Let me see, itching, numbness, tingling, grand mal seizures, swelling, change in the activity level, difficulty breathing, oral sensory changes, change in your menstrual pattern. Remember I said it's an endocrine disrupting product and that it causes infertility. Skin problems. One of the things on the FDA report is other. I'm not sure exactly what other means. But anyway, that's on the FDA's report. Localized pain and tenderness, urogenital, change in body temperature, difficulty swallowing, metabolic problems, joint and bone pain, speech impairment, gastrointestinal problems, chest pain, musculoskeletal, fainting, sore throat, cardiovascular, change in taste, difficulty with urination, respiratory problems, edema, change in hearing, abdominal swelling, and that's just a few of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on and on.
That's incredible. It tells you that you're just killing yourself, poisoning your whole body.
That's right. Exactly. And you should at least think, especially if you're a woman, about saving your babies, let them be born autistic.
I think it was all designed. I mean, just like I was researching the underarm deodorant, and that's one of the main reasons why women get breast cancer is because it has aluminum in it.
I don't doubt it.
And they're putting it under their arms, and it goes right through the lymph glands into the breast, and then it causes the tumor. And you can get deodorant at the health food store for $1.50 more. It's, chemical-free.
Yeah.
But see, women don't know this, and I had said that in the beauty salon one day, and I had every one of them girls over there with their tablets writing down where I get my deodorant.
Well,
they're like, oh, my God, I never thought of that. But, see, we don't. We just think everything's safe.
I know. And, when it comes to aspartame, the horrors that it has caused, even beyond the medical problems. And I think of Corinne Goulet, who threw herself in front of a train and killed herself recently, that did so much for France. And she was, just think, if aspartame had never been created, here she was just a happy wife. She loved her husband. They had 2 little babies, little girls, and life was just wonderful. And then he got on aspartame, and she even showed me pictures of the change in him, And then he began, she said, to molest the little girls, so she divorced him. And then he was very powerful. He told her he had a lot of influence in the courts. She was lecturing to thousands. And he said, if you keep on lecturing on aspartame, he said he would cut off her money, which he did. And she continued, she says, I can't stop warning people that they're using poison. And so he told her again, if you don't stop, he says, I'll take away your little girls. And so they went screaming out of the court, and he took away. And then she was sent pictures of the little girls drinking diet, or light Coke over there in the UK. And she went on for so long and said she couldn't live without her little girls, and threw herself in front of a train. The only thing left, they said, even the identifier was her pocketbook. And about others that have gone to call to prison, because of the methanol and aspartame, people thinking that they that it that they were absolutely poisoned. And they've even done studies with the DUI telling you not to use these products because one person got a DUI from drinking one beer and a lot of Diet Coke. And we had to provide all the information so the court would understand. And then you've got another man, they called me from Texas, who had an aspartame blackout and went 6 blocks of sleep, killed some people, and ended up 5 years in prison. And then we have to have an aspartame aviation division just to keep the planes in the skies because they're crashing airplanes. In fact, Cliff Evans was his first pilot that I talked to. He wrote a letter to Dr. Blaylock, and Dr. Blaylock referred him to me, and he said, dumb I'm not, but I couldn't make a decision on aspartame and crashed my plane into a tree. And he said, we got 600,000 pilots, can you help them? And so Dr. Blaylock wrote the aspartame pilot alert, which you'll find on one of those buttons. A friend of mine said he gave a copy to the pilot, and he got this seat in the very front on champagne. I says, well, I even give it out to all the stewardesses, but I said nobody gave me a seat in the front. So it was really kind of cute. But,
and you hear about a lot of problems they have on the flights with people that get drunk drinking the mixed drinks, and you wonder if they get unruly from drinking it with Diet Pop.
Well, people are having heart attacks from it so much. You got defibrillators on the plane. Today you can buy them over the counter because it causes sudden cardiac death and people on the plane.
Well, and that's another thing, too. A lot of the high schools have the defibrillators because the students are having heart problems in sports. But, I just thought about what you said, that they're keeping the Diet Pop in the high schools. I'm just wondering if these kids if there's a connection there.
Oh, of course there's a connection there. In fact, there was one that I corresponded with that in a school in the UK, and I sent all this information to Prince Charles. But anyway, he was fine. He was drinking regular Coke. And then they took all the regular Coke out of the school, and the only thing they would serve was the diet version, or light Coke, I think they call it. And it changed he said he didn't like the taste of it, but he had to have something to drink, and he kept drinking it. And that they called the police there. They thought that he was using drugs or alcohol. He said it was so horrible that they made him, his parents made him sleep by their bed at night. And he said some things are just too hard to talk about. And he said one day he was drinking one of these light Cokes, and the janitor stopped him because he was crying. He was 16 years old at the time. And he said, that's what's causing your problems. And he took him to the principal, whatever they call him over there, and he threw it down on the desk, and he said, this is what is causing the problems. And as soon as he got off of it, he went completely back to normal. And even they did that same thing in New Zealand, changed the contract to only including the products that were diet. And finally, when I got home, I talked to the minister over there, the health minister. I said, look, I came 10,000 miles to help you people, and you want to give this poison to kids in school. And I said, the least you can do is read the report for schools. So he did, and I tried to get back in touch with him, and they replaced him. He had sent me one email. He said, after reading that, I realized no child should ever have that. And even the FDA had told Dr. Oni that never, and Dr. Roberts, that never would they ever allow a child to have aspartame, and it's in all these pediatric drugs and over-the-counter drugs and in their products.
Dr. Betty, we had a guest come in late. They just came into the window, and they are asking you a question.
Okay.
Should a person with diabetes drink diet soda? It won't raise your sugar.
Yeah, of course. And if they missed, part of this, I mentioned that just like sugar, and that it's made with organic chicory, which has been used for over 70 years to improve the health of diabetics. And sucralose or Splenda has an ingredient in it also that's very, very bad for diabetics. And aspartame, I know Dr. Walton has said in his opinion, has caused the diabetic epidemic. Dr. Roberts said the same thing.
It interacts with their insulin and spikes their diabetes. I had a girl on the phone the other day. I was doing some business over the phone, and I was telling her, about why we were waiting. Her computer locked up. While we were waiting, I was telling her about my Wednesday night show and the holistic aspects. And I said, and we cover all different things. And she said, well, I'm diabetic. And I said to her, and she was at work, and I said, you don't have a diet pop in your hand, do you? And she went, well, yeah. And I told her about your site. I told her, how to find out about it and everything. I told her what it does to you when you're diabetic and how it poisons you and it spikes your diabetes. And you know what she said to me? Is that why after I drink one of those and I test my sugar, it's really high?
Well, the study on that, interestingly, as you're talking about this, I just got an email, and it said avoid a heart attack, and that there is a new study out there by Harvard that 1 in 3 people will die of heart disease. Can you imagine how many of those didn't have to die but died because of aspartame?
Well, I was reading an article yesterday on fluoride, and it made sense why these chemtrails are coming down in cobwebs now. Somebody had taken some, put them in a bag, and had it tested, and they said it had aluminum, barium, and cadmium in it. Okay, so this is what I found out about fluoride. Fluoride stays in your brain, and it attracts aluminum and causes Alzheimer's. So they're making everybody drink the water with the fluoride, and then they're raining the aluminum down on us.
Yeah.
It's all about messing everybody's heads up.
Yeah, that's true. You're absolutely right.
If they continue, and and then you think about the children are out on the playground, and they don't know anything about what's raining down on them. They're out there running and breathing hard and breathing all this in. It's just horrendous. I have to keep referring to the guide stones. They want 2/3 of the people to get sick and die.
Yeah, 93%. They're here in Georgia, and I think it took us a couple of hours to go down there. We took pictures of it because it's in 8 different languages, how they, want to depopulate. And then someone brought it to my attention the other day to read, to Google, not Agenda 21, which is depopulation, but Agenda 2030, and it will have things behind Agenda 21, but you might want to look that up. I didn't have a chance to do that today, but it just tells me that they are so arrogant that they don't even care that you know what they're up to anymore.
Well, I know by 2030 they want the population reduction to be finished, and they also want everyone chipped.
Right.
So they've got complete control of humanity.
You just wonder, how this all happened, that it got this far. But you know what Jesus said? He said Satan is the god of this world. And so, you see all these demonic things right in front of your eyes, and you wonder, how could anybody be willing to poison even little babies, for profit?
Well, I'm a firm believer, Dr. Betty, that we are in the last days. I mean, everything that's happening with the weather and the flooding and the wars and then ISIS. And, I mean, the more I research about ISIS, it's just horrendous what they're doing to the people in Sweden. The Muslim refugees are raping all the women over there, and their women are dying from being raped. Over 2,000 women have been raped by them.
God.
And 200 of them are little girls under 15 years old. And they have made videos and said that they're coming to America and that they're going to do this to America. They said they're going to kill the men, rape the women, and steal the children, and they want to breed with our children. That's what they call it. They want to have 22 kids with each child that they take. Now, I just saw a posting where 10,000 refugees have hit the shores of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Oh.
And there, somebody had posted it and said, "Where are the women and children? There aren't none. It's just all men." And somebody else commented and said, "That's because this is ISIS." And that's exactly what it is. We are being infiltrated. They're getting everybody in place, so hang on to your hat because, when you tell somebody about an EMP or being under attack, they look at you like you're out of your mind. And the thing is, they kind of laughed at me. I said, well, an EMP is what's going to happen when they send that nuclear weapon over our country. It puts the grid down. It's one of their plans. And they all laughed at me. And when I was driving away, I thought, you know what, I don't care if they laugh at me because one day when all this happens, they're going to go, oh, yeah, I remember being warned about that.
Now, that's true. I don't pay any attention to those people. I know our Aspertame so well, that if somebody even says anything, I know how to give them immediately the references because I've been doing this, for 25 years. All the information is out there on everything. And in the end days, it said all the information will be made available. So I absolutely agree with you. It can't go on much longer.
Well, and what they're spraying out of the sky is really, really affecting our food.
Oh, absolutely.
We are not getting the minerals or the nutrition in the food anymore.
This is why Dr. Blaylock is so concerned. He kept saying, you can't go back. And then I put some of the information on one of our lists, and somebody wrote me from Norway and said that there are things that won't grow anymore, and they're becoming extinct, and they had the chemtrails over there.
Well, they're lying like mad about Fukushima. I mean, I went. Have you ever checked the animal die-off list?
Well, I've read a whole lot of it. It kind of gets to me to the point.
Well, it's gotten worse.
Yeah, I know it. I know it has, and not only that. The other day there was an email about something happening at a nuclear plant in Nevada. You might want to look that up. That's getting pretty close.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Well, I know that there is a nuclear waste site in St. Louis that they're worried about right now that's underground, and there's a fire that's been underground that's heading towards it. I mean, the people there are up in arms because they have no plan for evacuating people or what they're going to do about it. And when I was watching a woman do a story, she had breaking news while she was standing there. She said, it's leaking. It has reached and it's leaking. And they gave her one of those little white masks with the charcoal in it. And she said, so we're going to move our TV crew because I can feel my chest burning. And I thought, you're breathing in radiation, woman.
Yeah.
But this is what's going on. This is why I warn everybody. There is a site I go to. It's called Emergency Essentials, and they sell the iodine pills. And I tell everybody, please go buy these iodine pills because if you have something, a disaster, you got to take those. You can't wait a week or 3 days or hope someone's going to bring you some or go somewhere and you can't find them. You got to have them there to take them because if you take them after the fact that you get exposed, they don't work. And Emergency Essentials sells them. They were selling them for $20 a pack, which is 2 weeks, and I researched it. You need to take them for a month. One person has to take them for a month, and they just marked them down to $9.99 a pack. So for $20 for one person, you've got them on hand.
Yeah, well, that's good information.
We have to do these things because things are happening around here that are, I just really do have this gut feeling that the new Madrid is gonna happen, and because there are things that they're doing. They're putting portable morgues along there. Did you hear about that?
No, portable what?
Morgues.
Oh, morgues. They're
like a trailer that are refrigerated, and they got all the trays in there for the bodies and a drop-down gate, and I think it held like 18 to 20 bodies. And they had what did they call it? The company that made them said the government ordered a bunch of them, and they're being taken to around the New Madrid fault line.
Okay, well, I do know, because a lot of people took pictures of it and put it on the Internet, that here in Georgia, they had this astronomical amount of coffins piled up outside. There was just no place to put them.
Yeah.
A lot of people went down and took pictures of it.
Well, let me tell you what I found out about the emergency food. There is a guy that goes on the Jim Baker show, and his name is Jim Shorey, and he had an emergency food company send him an email, and they said they were contacted by the government to give them inventory of all the food they have in their warehouse and how much they produce a day. And so they emailed them back and said, why would you be interested in our personal business? So the government emailed them back and said, because if there's a natural disaster in the United States, we're going to lock down your warehouse and take your food. You know they ain't going to take it to hand it out to anybody.
Exactly.
You know, so
that's what I talk about, the arrogance sometimes. If they just let you know, there was one of the victims that had a brain tumor. They gave him 6 months to live, and then his wife found out about aspartame and got him off, and he was doing real well. She said the brain tumor was actually dying. And so, but having no information about Splenda, got on that, and he had a grand mal seizure. And she had called the company because she watched it happening and said over and over again about this, and the lady kept saying, no, Splenda's safe. And then finally she said, well, okay, it did cause seizures, grand mal seizures, in original studies. And so they on purpose don't give you information.
Now, see, the baking soda molasses, the baking soda shrinks tumors.
Well, I don't doubt it. But because that's what a lot of people use that when they have cancer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a guy on YouTube. I get the biggest kick out of his video. He had stage 4 prostate cancer. And he said, they told me to go home and die. And he said, I got on the Internet. See, he did what we say. Go do some research. He said, I got on the Internet and wanted to see if there was something I could do for myself. And that's when he found the baking soda and the molasses.
Right, it's all there.
Yeah, and he said, he showed how to mix it all up and everything, and he drank it down. And this is the part that's funny. He sets his cup down and says, and it's been 1.5 years, I'm cancer-free, so eat that, go home and die, doctor.
Oh.
I just got the biggest kick out of it. I thought, you tell him, baby. And he said, this stuff works.
No.
I'm proud of people that do that.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Betty, we're up at the end of the show. It was such a delight to have you on. I had a great time tonight. It was just a delight to talk to you again.
Well, I thank you very much, Mary, for all that you do in getting the word out. That's the way we do it, is exponentiation, you know.
Well, we just got to keep inchworming along and just keep knowing that just if we even just reach one person or affect one life, we've done our job.
Right. Okay.
That's you and your husband. Tell them I said hi from Michigan.
Okay, I will.
Thank you, Dr. Betty, and we'll have you back real soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a great evening and a blessed week.